Hey guys, Dr. Juneau here, and I am coming to you with a really special read aloud from the Grand Canyon in Arizona. It's amazing out here, and today we're going to be reading a new book from our school library called Tito the Tortoise Adventures in the Grand Canyon. Tito the Tortoise was fast asleep in his burrow, dreaming of his next adventure, when suddenly, "Tito, wake up!" It was his friend Rudy, the long-eared jerboa. "I just read in Tortoise Talk that the kebab squirrel needs our help." "Why?" asked the sleepy Tito. "Penny the squirrel wrote that they eat seeds from the cone of the ponderosa pine tree, but they are getting tired of eating the same thing day after day," said Rudy. "She asked readers to mail in recipes. I have one to share: roasted pine seeds and honey." "But where do we find her?" asked Rudy. Tito pulled out a map of a likely spot: Arizona's Kebab National Forest. "That's right next to the Grand Canyon," said Tito. "Why don't we explore while we're there? I'll call ahead and make reservations." "Count me in," said Rudy. So Rudy wrote down his recipe, and they started along their way. Tito and Rudy walked down the desert trail and soon met up with an owl. "Where are you going?" the owl asked. "We're searching for Penny," said Tito, showing him the picture from the paper. "Ah, yes, the kebab squirrel has a fondness for pine seeds, as I recall. You must go to the end of the trail and then ride the train until you reach the big hole in the ground," instructed the owl. "How big is the hole?" asked Tito. "Oh, it's big," said the owl. "You can't miss it." So Tito and Rudy continued on their way. After a lot of walking, they finally reached the train station. "All aboard," called the conductor. Tito and Rudy hopped on. Next stop, the Grand Canyon. Tito and Rudy watched the landscape change from tumbleweeds and sagebrush to forest and pine trees, but there was no sign of Penny. As they rode, they listened to the conductor. "The Grand Canyon is one of the natural wonders of the world. The canyon is, on average, 1 mile deep, 10 miles wide, and 277 miles long. The Colorado River has been carving the steep canyon walls over millions of years." The train's brakes squealed. "End of the line," announced the conductor, "the south rim of the Grand Canyon National Park." Tito and Rudy caught a shuttle bus to the lookout at Mather Point. "Wow," said Rudy. "So that's what the owl meant by a big hole in the ground," laughed Tito. They looked around the visitor center, but still no sign of Penny. Rudy asked a park ranger, "We are looking for the kebab squirrels. Have you seen them?" "Sure. We call them tassel-eared squirrels because of the long fur on their ears. They also have dark bellies and snowy white tails," the ranger explained. "You'll find them in the ponderosa pine trees." "What do the trees look like?" asked Tito. "You can tell a ponderosa by the deep, dark cracks in the bark, and its needles grow in groups of 3, she explained. "But your squirrels live only on the Kebab Plateau, which is on the other side of the canyon." "How do we get there?" asked Rudy. "We've got reservations for a mule ride down into the canyon," Tito explained. "Really?" asked Rudy, who was nervous and excited at the same time. When they arrived at the mule corral, a wrangler helped them saddle up. They took the Bright Angel Trail, which drops over 4,000 feet from the top of the canyon rim all the way down to the Colorado River at the bottom. Along the way, they saw petroglyphs, rock carvings made by Native Americans long ago. "Yikes, this trail is so high and narrow," Rudy cried. "Don't worry, the mules are careful, and they're used to zigzagging their way down the switchbacks," said Tito. Rudy closed his eyes. A voice called out from the bushes, "Whoa!" As the line of mules jerked to a stop, a rabbit appeared, pointing at the slope. "Hold up, bighorn sheep ahead." The group waited as the sheep crossed the trail. "Whew," sighed Tito. "Thanks." "No problem," said the rabbit. "Where are you headed?" "We're searching for kebab squirrels," said Rudy. "We're bringing them a recipe." "Those fluffy-eared squirrels are easy to spot," said the rabbit. "Just look for the nests they build out of twigs and pine needles. And when they eat pine seeds, they leave a trail behind. I can show you the way, but why not stop by my place for a cool drink first?" Tito and Rudy were thirsty. "Sure," they agreed. As they crossed over Black Bridge, Tito shouted, "We're at the bottom of the canyon now, but the Colorado River is still so far below us." Rudy giggled. Tino, your binoculars are backwards. A few minutes later, the rabbit declared, home sweet home, Phantom Ranch. They sipped the cool water and then looked for shady spots to rest. Out of nowhere, a new voice warned, I wouldn't sit there if I were you. Tino was about to sit on a snake. He popped inside his shell and the snake darted away. Shoot, there goes lunch, said a roadrunner. You eat those? Asked Rudy. Yep, he answered. Tino popped his head out. This time I was almost lunch. Thanks. Where are you headed? Asked the roadrunner. We're on our way to Boat Beach, said Tino. I reserved us 2 seats on a whitewater raft. We're going to float down the Colorado River. We are? Asked Rudy, who was nervous and excited at the same time. At Boat Beach, their guide was waiting for them. They hopped on their raft and floated in the water of the river. For hours, they gazed up at the enormous canyon walls, soaring sandstone cliffs, and colorful layers of rock. As evening approached, they set up camp on one of the river's many beaches. They had lots of questions. How long is the Colorado River? Asked Rudy. 1,450 miles long, said their guide. Are there lots of rapids? Asked Tino. More than 150, some easy and some hard. Just then a huge shadow swooped over them. Yikes, yelled Rudy as a bald eagle dove. Don't worry, I've got you covered, said Tino, guarding him with his sturdy shell. The next day, their relaxing raft ride began to change. Tino noticed the water swirling faster and faster. Watch out ahead, he shouted. Tino, it's getting pretty bumpy. What's happening? Cried Rudy. Hold on, everyone, we're going to take a plunge, hollered their guide. Down and up and down went the raft. Tino and Rudy laughed and screamed with excitement as they bounced down the rapids. Over the next few days, they rode through thrilling rapids and calm waters. Before long, they arrived at Diamond Creek. We made it, Tino cried. They thanked their guide and headed for the bus. Once they got back to the Bright Angel Lodge, they caught a rim-to-rim shuttle. As they drove toward the north rim of the canyon, Rudy and Tino saw a forest of ponderosa pine trees. They were finally nearing Penny's home. When the bus stopped at the Grand Canyon Lodge, they couldn't believe how green it was compared to the reds and browns of the canyon below. Deep in the forest, they heard an encouraging noise. Squeak, squeak, chatter, chatter. We must be close, said Rudy, feeling nervous and excited at the same time. Tino showed Rudy a pile of pine cone cobs. Look, cried Rudy, a squirrel nest. A furry head poked out from the branches. There was no mistaking those tasseled ears. Hi, I'm Rudy, and this is my friend Tino. We're looking for Penny. That's me, said the squirrel. We read your article and brought you our favorite recipe, roasted pine seeds and honey, said Rudy. Thank you, said Penny. I am so excited to try something new. How about if we cook up Rudy's recipe for dinner tonight, suggested Tino. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it, said Penny. That night, they feasted on honey-roasted pine seeds with their new squirrel friends. They listened to the winds blowing through the ponderosa pines and stared up at the river of stars until they couldn't keep their eyes open. The next morning, they said their goodbyes. Thanks for having us, said Rudy. Come visit us in the Mojave Desert sometime, said Tino. We'll be sure to have a new recipe for you. I promise, said Penny. Mission accomplished, Tino and Rudy headed for home. I love the Grand Canyon and the Kaibab National Forest, but I'm ready to be back in our burrow, said Rudy. Me too, said Tino. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story being read to you from the Grand Canyon out in Arizona.